Welcome to AP United States History. My name is Paul Ricken. A lot of people call me PS. You can call me that if you want to. And I will be leading you on this journey this year. I guess in this picture here, I'm George Washington, and you guys are the people in the boat with me. This is my 35th year of teaching, and I've seen a lot of changes in my career. My first students are now over 50 years old, if you can believe that. The first thing that I want you to be aware of this year is that we're operating in a new environment at Black River High School. We're making some history. You are the very first students in Black River to operate in what's called the one-to-one learning environment. You'll be able to tell your grandchildren about that years from now. What does that actually mean? Why do we do it, and how will it work? This is something that's called blended learning, and it's going to become more apparent to you as we go along why we're doing it and how it will work. But as you know, it is not the same learning environment you started your school years in, and it's certainly even different from last year. But before we get into any of that, I'll talk to you a little bit about my own teaching philosophy. I don't know if any of you have thought about going into teaching, but realize that if you do, you will certainly draw on the experiences of good teachers that you had, and you will probably also draw on the experiences of poor teachers that you had. Those things will combine with your own personality to create the teacher that you will become. And I want to start off right away with this particular question. And I know some of you I've had in class before, but it's an important question. And one of the things I've learned since 1978 is that the greatest single obstacle to our progress in life tends to be ourselves. And education is really an example of trying to pursue self-mastery. Now, how do you do that? How do you actually master yourself and begin to develop the habits that would make you into a great student? Well, it takes a lot of work. And I like to use this man as an example. This is Jamie Escalante. He was a great math teacher. He was portrayed in a movie called Stand and Deliver, which some of you may have seen. And I know when I first saw the movie, I was intrigued by his continual use of the word ganas. And the word ganas, if you know any Spanish, it means something like drive or motivation or desire. The other phrase that you're seeing here, el deseo de triunfar, means to have the desire to triumph. Now, why do some people have a great deal of drive and motivation while other people don't? That's the great mystery, really, for any teacher to try to unravel in a student. So I want you to think about that. I want you to think about the obstacle that you might present yourself, and also about your own motivation before we get too far into this experience together. Now, a little bit about my teaching methodology. I think I can reduce my teaching philosophy to three things. The first thing to realize is that I'm what's called a contextualist. You're seeing a picture here of the very best teacher that I ever had. His name is Peter Hovde, and I was a student of his at Concordia College back in the 1970s when he was a very young man. He was a political science teacher, and he specialized in teaching about the dynamics of international relations. I never worked harder for any teacher in my life, and I never learned as much as I did from Hovde. And I believe it was due to this gift he had for helping me see the relevance of what I was studying, to see it within the context of my own life. So that's the first thing. Second, I was deeply influenced by teachers I had had who effectively used something called the Socratic method of teaching. A huge challenge for me in a class like AP US History, for example, is to ask you the right questions. particularly if we're reading a hard text or examining an image or studying a photograph or listening to music. What are the questions that need to be asked in order for you to actually understand what we're studying? Important. Third, I am a person who relies on something called the Thayer method. Sylvanus Thayer was a renowned teacher at West Point. This is the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. He instituted a style of learning there that really is very simple and it's very traditional, but it's not really practiced that much, unfortunately. And what it has to do with is you coming to class prepared. I had history teachers in college that used this method of teaching, and it was always extremely effective for me. Some of you I've worked with before, you know that I use something called the Stoughton principles. The word Stoughton actually it's a combination of two words, stoic and Spartan, and it really comes out of the world of distance running. You might think that's an odd thing to try to use those same principles in a classroom, but it's really quite logical. And what I found over the years, what I have found is that my best students always seem to practice these principles. When we have effective classes and classrooms, these things seem to be happening all the time. So you can see what they are. They are something that you'll get used to hearing in here. We will repeat them often, and we will try to actually practice these things. Finally, I just want to wish you good luck on this journey, and it's very important that we learn to enjoy the ride. History is a wonderful subject, so let's get started.